Hi, I'm Elaine.
Hello, I am Maggie.
Thank you for coming today.
Welcome to our podcast, and we have shifted our name from Eggs and Ego to
Ley Luminary.
Ley Luminary. Yes. We can talk about that later, I guess.
That should be a whole nother thing, but
Yeah.
yes, there's a big meaning behind that. So we're pretty happy about it.
Yes, definitely.
Because
Yes.
there's going to be a lot of surprises with that.
Yes.
So today's topic, internal awareness. And I wanted to start with a quote from Carl Jung. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of him. He's a Swiss psychiatrist and a psychoanalyst. And one of the big quotes is everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Chew on that for a little bit.
I've
So,
definitely.
why did we even want to talk about this?
Well, it's something that we have both been. Well, I can just guess I should only speak for myself. It's something that I have definitely been trying to tap into more, becoming more aware of the paths I'm taking, the choices I'm making, the things I'm saying to myself, the things that are coming to me from the universe or what have you, and just trying to be more aware.
Ever since we've been starting this podcast and we've been getting deeper into learning more about ourselves and the choices that we make and how much control we have over that, how we respond, it really influences our choices because we've been making a lot of different choices lately. And both of our lives have been evolving and changing a lot. And although Maggie's life has changed and it just has exponentially changed within the last year, I will also be going through a big change when I graduate in May. So, talking about all of these topics, and just because of the fact that I'm so passionate about vibrational therapy, that led to, well, how did I learn that? And what is it that I attach vibrational sound therapy to? Well, my beekeeping. And why did I attach it to my beekeeping? Well, because my beekeeping got me through some really tough times. And those tough times impaired me. They petrified me. Those tough times limited my capacity to even leave my home.
Yeah.
And so through beekeeping, I was able to work on my PTSD. And at the time, I didn't realize it. At the time, I didn't know what was happening. And then I come to the realization that it was the internal awareness. And so that's how I got onto this subject of internal awareness because I'm having to do a lot of it lately, especially with the new changes in the seasons, like what we talked about in our last episode. A lot can be changing even if your life is pretty consistent because we go through these seasonal changes, school starting again. You're getting a different, change in the way that you work, wherever it is that you're employed at. So that could mean, oh no, now you've moved up into another position at work. So that's a change. And there's constant change around us. Like nothing is ever static. Even if it feels like you're going to the same job every day and everything seems the same, everything around you is in constant change. And so internal awareness is really a great topic to help you cope with those changes and embrace them.
Yeah, definitely. Because if you are able to become aware of how you are responding to your environment and even to your own thoughts, it can change your perspective. I mean, I just had this conversation with my kids earlier about some of the choices they were making. And I noticed for myself, first of all, I said, we've got a big problem here. And then I stopped myself. I said, well, we don't have a big problem here. You have a problem here. This is a problem you need to work on. This is, and so it was just that not only internal awareness that I'm wanting them to have with their choices and how they're reacting, and but also for myself. Yeah. So it's pretty
Yeah. So let's talk about like what exactly is it?
internal.
What do people? Yeah. Let's just talk about first what it is.
Okay.
'Cause it can seem like a confusing subject, and I know there's a lot of podcasts on there out there that you could listen to, but I kind of want to keep it simplified
Yeah.
and just like why it's so important.
Well, I think if you are, it's kind of that realizing for me anyway. Um, there's your mind and there's your observing mind. And a lot of times people go their entire lives without realizing this is a tool, like this is a muscle, like I can work this out. There's thoughts that come into my mind even to this day that I have to say, whoa, where's that coming from? I don't like that. That's not, and you and I have both evolved hugely over our lives from when we were younger, teenagers in our early 20s, and the kinds of people that we were back then. In ways,
Yeah.
like you said, there are things that are still the same, but there are a lot that has changed. And I remember getting to the point where I don't want to be this person anymore. I want to be a different person. I don't like how negative I am, and I was not always the most pleasant, and I was I'm malicious at times, and like I was like, who am I? I don't want people to see me as this person anymore. And I had to make the physical, mental decision to say this is not who I'm going to be anymore. And so anytime that habitual, because your mind is going to do what's easy, what it's used to. The minute that those habitual thoughts, reactions, actions, if you did A, I would do B, and it was just like, okay, well, let's take a step back and say, I'm not going to be that anymore. What am I going to replace that with? So it was like training a puppy. Puppy, you don't want it to pee on the carpet, so you take it outside. So every time that my brain would start going in that direction, I would say, stop, come over here instead, and I would have to have something to replace it with. So okay, say if this was my normal reaction, I had to have something ready, and it took so long, right, to finally just totally change how I responded and reacted, and there were still areas that I didn't, probably still there's still triggers, right? And it just took a long time, but it was a conscious decision. And so even now, we were just talking about this before with a situation that I saw myself slipping back into some of those patterns of, wait, this isn't who I am. How did I get here? And having to retrain, like, no, I'm not doing that, anymore.
Yeah. So you're consciously being aware of how you're feeling at that time, what you're thinking, your emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and then redirecting them.
Mm-hmm.
And the redirecting part, the actionable part that you're talking about, is where the training comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have that conscious awareness and you recognize those things that are happening with your body or your mind, that helps you make better decisions and to have better outcomes. Because if you're doing the same thing all the time, you're going to have the same results. So you don't want to do these certain things. You don't want to have these certain outcomes. Well, you have to put in the training. You have to put in the actionable work
Right.
of redirecting your thoughts. So I was thinking, like on the way back home this morning from school, and it's like a mind's mindfulness.
Yeah.
So imagine yourself driving a car, but it's like a dream where you're dreaming of yourself, but you see yourself. So imagine yourself driving a car, And you're going on this trip that's called life's journey. And so you see all the cars out there, you see all the trees, and you see all the different buildings as you're going through different towns, and you don't have time to count like every single one, right? You can't. You're going through life
Right.
and you're driving it. And so you know that the car's purpose is to drive as well. So when you see cars, you know exactly what their purpose is. And it's just like emotions. When you see anger or happiness or sadness, you know what those purposes are that are attached to those emotions. And so as you're driving along in life's journey, you don't want to like always specifically attach to it, but recognize it. I see that red car. I see that anger. Keep driving. Keep driving forward, because going forward is going to give you the best outcome, and it's going to keep your life journey going smoother in a balance. And so recognizing those things is going to keep you driving forward. And so that's the only way that I know how to really map that out.
I recently heard something very similar. It's interesting how you put it. And I was listening to I can't remember who it was now. I'll have to see if I can remember. But they compared it to trains in a train station. And they said, don't be the train, be the train station. The trains are coming and going. The train station doesn't go along with them. The train station sees them coming and sees them going, and so they recognize that, okay, so you're the train station, not the train. You're not getting on the train. You're just like, here it comes. Okay, there it goes. You know.
Yeah. But that's what I like about it, because ultimately you are the driver of your life journey. You can make those decisions. If you choose to attach yourself always to that red, angry car, you're always going to have that negative attachment. But you got to learn how to detach and not do that. And yeah, I mean, our evolution for survival has made us always have a negative bias. I get that. So we're always looking out for threats. We're always looking out for if there's something that is going to affect us in a negative way. And that could be, I don't know, if you're lactose intolerant, you're always looking out. Does it have milk in it? Does it this? But the more that you attach that negative thought or that negative emotion, if your heart starts beating really fast and you concentrate on that, you're concentrating all your energy on that. That's what you're going to engulf the driving of life. Do you want to sit in a car with a pissed off person all the time?
Yeah.
No. But the person that you're sitting in the car with that's pissed off all the time is you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that just like festers. So I've learned with internal awareness is just to, okay, I'm pissed off. I get it. Let's move on.
Right.
And then before you move on, just say, what could I learn from that? Flip the perception. Start the actionable work, the actionable training, and say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Just like Maggie was saying, I don't want to be that way. I don't want to feel that way. I don't want that. What do I want? I want to be happy. I want to be productive. I want to have better outcomes. I want to keep going through this life as smooth as I can.
Right.
So by avoiding that attachment and learning from it and saying, okay, I get it. I see that. What can I do with that? Is it conducive to my life journey? Is it going to be constructive in what I need to do right now as far as putting gas in the tank and keeping me going?
Right.
But it's all yourself because you're the one driving it. So
yeah,
you can drive yourself into the fucking ground, or you can drive yourself to a beautiful mountain, whatever.
Exactly. And sometimes, I mean, I think too that it can be such when you know. It's like deep down whether you want to admit it or not.
Yeah.
And the thing is that sometimes even though making that change can be so scary and
Yeah.
so hard because like part of the I well, what is it? Well, when he says I contain multitudes, my life, there have been many lives in my life, many chapters, I should say, and there was a big chapter of my life where well, I don't want to say struggled. I wasn't saying it was a struggle. I abused a lot of substances. There was a lot of substance abuse. Like I said, it wasn't a struggle because I enjoy doing it. But I realized when I needed to change that big part of my life, it was more than just stopping using. It was my entire environment, the people I was with, the place I lived, the every single aspect basically of my life, my routines every day, the way I drove home. I mean, it was like I realized it's not just this that has to change. This is the first step, but like even if I'm changing, because I remember I had a friend that I was making these changes and I was like, I can't go out and party tonight. I have got I was this was at the time when I was still going to the Catholic Church, and I was like, I've decided, that was one of the ways I could try to start, like, it was more meditative, right? Because the Rosary really spoke to me because it was like a meditative thing, and I went to a really old Catholic church, so it was one of those big stone buildings, and you walked in, and that smell of the incense and like the ritual of it, like there were so many things that didn't jive for me with the Catholic Church, but there were those things that I think kind of led also to where I am today. And so I said to her, I can't, I'm going to church in the morning, I'm going. And she was like, come on, come. Well, just take half of it. Cause Jesus loves when people are awake, so that was like, Jesus loves when people are
Yeah.
awake. So like, come do this
Pay
speed.
attention.
Yeah. Come on, come do this speed with me. We're going to go have a great time. Jesus loves when people are awake. And I was just like, that was like a click for me. I was like, I knew like this friendship is gonna have to change or end, or it didn't end, but I just had to separate. You know what I mean? And so it was just like realizing, even if I want to make these changes and I'm trying to like make these conscious shifts in my life, there are going to be people, if I'm surrounding myself, it's like that vibrational thing, different topic. If you're surrounding yourself with these people, they see you starting to come up here and they may love and care about you, but this is not what they know. This is not what they like. They want you back down here where they're used to. It's comfortable here. So it was just like this shifting away from these friends. And I even had somebody, because I'd gone and like I'd been gone a couple weeks, and then I came back to the one of the bars that we would go hang out with, and one of the friends that we hung out with called me a fair weather friend. And I was like, wait a minute. I didn't know you were going through stuff, and I didn't, but like, it was somebody who was never really there for me. And it was so strange. And it was just like, okay, well, it was just like another sign of like, you don't belong here, you
Yeah.
know? And so it was a challenge, but I mean, that was one of the times I had to make a big shift in my life, um, to start growing into a different direction, you know?
But see, when you start paying attention to yourself in your mind and your heart, then everything else around you, even though those people didn't physically change, everything looked different because your perception changed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When your perception changed because you started to recognize what was going on in your mind and what you were doing,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't look the same anymore.
Right. Right.
And that's like one of the weirdest feelings. When your perception changes, everything around you looks and feels different.
We were talking about that too, how somebody can physically, they didn't change, but they look different. And I had that experience with somebody that I just recently parted ways with, that I hadn't, we had parted ways and I didn't see him for a week or two. And then I saw him. Not only was the energy different, but he smelled different. Like even the smell of him before, I know he smelled like he always smelled, but the smell was like, I don't like the smell anymore. Even to that level, my body was like, like, no, even the smell is wrong.
That's why I like meeting people, because there's the whole thing about first impressions.
Yeah.
And then once you get to know them and they turn out to be like this really awesome person, they physically look different.
Yeah. Yeah.
They physically, even though they haven't changed, they were the same the day
Mm-hmm.
you met them, but they look completely different.
Yeah. I
Isn't
mentioned,
that wild
yeah.
how extreme your perception can be when we rely on those judgments, when we rely on how we were raised, our values, all of that plays a role in your perception.
Yeah.
You can keep your car driving in the forward, you know,
Yeah.
perception of positive and not attaching yourself to all the negative. You'll be driving out from the gutter into a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not easy. You're going to get a flat tire and you're going to be stuck on the side of the road on that
Yeah.
journey in life. But,
It was definitely two steps
it's,
forward, one step back, two steps forward, one step back,
yes.
you know. But it is almost like, okay, let me see, like, oh yeah, no, this is right. Okay. Like almost okay, check. Oh no, no, that's right. I'm not going back over there, you know?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm. And it might take a few tries till
yeah.
you finally get it. But
And yeah.
when you get it, it's just like math. When you get it, you'll always get it. There's no turning back. Once you get it, you get it.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
that's like the cream on the top. And then when you know how capable you are at changing your perception. I know somebody who hates their job. They dread their job. They don't want to get up and go through this same groundhog day they've been going through for several years. There is no place to move up in the workplace. The people around that person in the workplace look like zombies and they're just going through the motions. Nobody has any vibrance in their life.
Right.
And, this is just dread. But if that person, although that person doesn't have the control to change that environment, if that person were to change their perception, they might see it completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And if they see it completely different, they might see opportunities that they didn't see before,
Yeah.
which in turn could put them in a different place besides where they're at today.
Yeah.
That's how powerful internal awareness is.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important.
Yeah. I feel like it touches on so many things too, because it's like being able to say, okay, I cannot change this, because this is true for so many people. You may not be able to change your where you live or who you live with, or your mother-in-law moved in and there's nothing you can do about it. Well, you have that choice internally to say, okay, I can be thinking this way and I can just react this way, or I can try to do things that will bring me, I mean, because maybe your mother-in-law is just a dread to live with, and she's negative and she's this and she's that and all of these things, because I know somebody who's going through this right now, anyway. And it's just like, what can you do? It's like when we went to the restaurant that day, and that waitress that we had, and we were, you and me and the kids were all having such a good day, and we're sitting outside, and and the waitress was just like, yeah, what do you want? What? And then we just sat at the table and we're like, okay, kids, this is the challenge. We could have been like, oh, why do we have to get her? Why is such a bad waitress? I'm gonna leave her a bad review. I'm gonna not give her a tip, right? Or I was like, okay, let's see who can make her smile first. Let's see who can make her laugh first. And if you can make her bend over and laugh, you were the one that was like, but if you can get her to laugh and fart at the same time. And so then it was like, it shifted everything at our table. Like we weren't like bummed out now that we had this grumpy waitress. And so the kids started like telling her jokes. And it turned her around. She was like
Mhm.
raised up to here. And then we find out, that's the thing too, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
If we were just going to react to what she was doing, we would be brought down to her level where she was. Well, then come to find out, she didn't sleep great and her kid's this. And it was just like she'd had a really rough night and a really rough morning getting her kid off. And it was just like, we could relate to that, as moms. But if we just had just gone with our initial, like, who's driving the car here, reaction to, oh, she's doing this, okay, then I do this, you know. But we,
And it's training. It's training. It really is, because it's hard not to fall into that pit because of the negative bias. We're always looking for like threats, and in some weird way somebody's crappy attitude is a threat, so then we mirror that threat
yeah,
because we feel threatened by it. But it's like the same analogy with the car. You're driving in it and this waitress gets in your car.
yeah,
You can drive with her while you're on this really, really blip of a journey with her in your journey of life, and you can be infectious. You
yeah,
can be infectious in a positive way, or you can be infectious in the negative way. But should you choose the positive way when she's no longer your passenger and she gets out of her car and she goes drives in her car somewhere else on her life's journey,
yeah,
that is going to resonate
yeah,
and spread to the next person that gets in her car.
yeah,
And what do you think she might do with that? She might become infectious and bring a smile to somebody else. It's a blip in the water and it ripples.
yeah. And
It spreads. It's just,
I was watching something recently. I told you I've gone down the rabbit hole. And it's just like, it, and there was like a scientific thing they did where you are actually transferring your energy. So somebody that come, and we've all experienced this. We've come across somebody who's in a bad mood, and then you get into a bad mood. Suddenly their mood is, they're fine. They've transferred that energy. It's like, off me now. You know, and it's like a real thing of transferring of energy. I know we're kind of getting off internal awareness.
no, but that's fine because it all starts with you.
Yeah.
It all starts with your internal awareness. So it's not only just internally what you're feeding yourself, what you're telling yourself as you're driving, the mind's mindfulness. But when you make those choices for yourself, you also have the choice of what you're going to let out.
Yeah.
So it can't all just be great in here and then you just blurting off negative stuff. You're just blurting off red cars all the time. You're spitting out red cars and flat tires. Nobody's going to go anywhere with that.
Yeah. I mean, and this is something that, I catch myself still like, oh, I wish I would handle that differently. But like we were just saying, it's a practice, not a perfect. You know, we're constantly practicing to like train. It's like training, like training a muscle. Like you have to just keep at it, and then it'll become more natural. And of course, you're still gonna have those days where you slip. This morning I was having a slip, and it was just like, okay, back on track, and don't sit there and like berate yourself because you fell off the bike.
No,
If your kid fell
no.
off the bike, you're not gonna be like, how could you do that? You're
It's like hitting your head on the steering wheel.
it's like, okay, get
Why?
back up. You just,
We get it. Let it go.
yeah,
And
exactly.
that's what's so cool about the brain, because you brought that up. It is a muscle.
Mm-hmm.
So the more you're training yourself, the more you're hardwiring those things, the more you concentrate on those things, the more plasticky your brain comes. They call that neuroplasticity because you're building new connections with all your brain neurons and your electrical connections. And so the more you build on that, the easier it is over time with the practice, that it'll come to you a lot easier. And I've seen that change in me from when I started college for my freshman year now to my senior year. Not only just the way that I speak with other people and how I speak to myself, but the confidence that I have because I know that I'm going in there with a positive attitude and taking away what can I learn from. Because no matter what, there's all kinds of things you're going to deal with in life. There's always going to be negative stuff out there.
Yeah.
But how are you going to respond to it?
Yeah.
Because who do you got to live with at the end of the day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you lay your head down at night, you're lost in your own thoughts. So don't be picking up people in your car and letting them inject you and infect you with negativity, and stop looking at those red angry cars, because when you go to sleep, you're not getting sleep, and we already talked about why sleep's so important. So it's just a domino effect.
Yeah.
So do you want a domino effect of happiness, or do you want a domino effect of going forward and being happy instead of having the unhappiness? I mean, that's just like as clear as day. Who would not want that?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. And it's a lot to dismantle, and it can be if you're not motivated, if you're not willing. But I mean, it's unfortunate to think that there are so many people that don't either don't realize it or don't follow through with the changes that they could make to give themselves a happier life.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So let's say you're saying, all right, this is all great and fine for y'all, but how do I do this for me in my real life, like every day? So what's one way that you can think of?
Well, I'll leave the reflective journaling to you, because I want you to tell them what you've been learning with that, because you've been spending a lot of time on it lately and telling me about it. I would say seeking feedback and biofeedback. So, this is something you can get from people that you trust. This can be something that maybe a person that you confide in, that maybe from the outside looking in, they can see kind of the blind spots that you're not able to visualize. Just getting a little bit of internal inputs from other people, but not solely relying on that, because they can sometimes provide a mirror to how like we're behaving. Like,
Mm-hmm.
did you notice that whenever this situation happens between us, you behave this way? And so sometimes it's good to get a little feedback to say, you know what, I didn't realize I was doing that. Thank you for telling me. So maybe opening up that communication to somebody that you really trust for that, because the social mirror is what they call it, can give you those insights that you're not going to recognize on your own. And then once you do, you can make a conscious choice on, how you want to go about that. As far as the biofeedback goes, that kind of relates back to our first episode when we spoke about the Moonology cards. And that's the Oracle cards. And we'll post that a link in there as well. And we use that a lot for just talking about what is going on with their life at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this Moonology set, we're not specific to it other than the fact that we just we're very drawn to the artwork and the lunar phases. So there's so many different oracle cards or decks that you can go to.
That's another one.
And I think it's Hay House
Yeah.
is the publisher that has like over 50 or 70 different types of oracle cards. But the reason why we do that is because this is the tool to help you with internal awareness, that helps you in reflection, it helps you in introspection, it helps you find a good direction once you're starting to recognize those patterns or those emotions that you're feeling. And then you kind of just lay it all out. You lay it all out either with yourself. Me and Maggie like to do this together because we get feedback, that input I was telling you about just a second ago,
Right.
from one another. And then that helps us keep us driving straight
Right.
with our purpose. So the Moonology cards is just a tangible thing to help us get there. And some people are more tactile than they are with their spatial thinking. So that is a tool, two tools, seeking outside feedback and doing biofeedback.
Yeah, definitely. And I've heard it called a lot of different things, like automatic writing, intuitive writing, um, just journaling, free journaling. What else does somebody call, like somebody call it channeling writing? Channeling? What did you say?
Channeling.
Channeling.
Yeah.
And so I've started recently like creating journals. I've already filled one. I'm on my second one. This is the one I'm using. And I'm writing in my journal. I'm asking questions, the things I want to, focus on, or any notes from things that I am learning along the way, or podcasts, things that stick out to me. But then the interesting thing is I didn't even realize that this was a thing. Because I remember asking, like, what is this? It's like I start writing and then I just sort of like go into this zone where it's just like coming out of me, and it's like I'm not consciously thinking of anything, and it's just like, and then sometimes when this happens, when I have this I guess intuitive writing that's going on, I don't refer to myself as I, because it's almost like it's like the universe is talking to me. And so when I'm writing, I say it, like it comes out as like you blah 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 blah, like somebody, like the universe is talking to me. So I watched a few videos about this recently, and one of them, and I brought this up to you too, was I said my handwriting has changed. When I do this, my handwriting is like totally, because like my handwriting like is like crazy messy, partially cursive, partially whatever, and then as it has gone along, it's like gotten so upright and just, like, it's very,
Steady.
huh?
Balance
Balanced, steady.
and steady. Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's just completely. I mean, yeah, I have moments of like drawing this and like scribbling over here, but it's been so interesting. And then sometimes things will come out that I'm like, whoa, I'm interested in like, why did I write that? Where did that come from? What is this trying to tell me? Where's this guiding me to go? And I do, and I ask those questions, and I just learned about that A Course in Miracles, which I've not read a whole lot of it about it, but I watched a couple of videos, and there's the 3 questions that she starts with, that the lady that I was reading about starts with. I'm trying to find them. So just asking the universe, what would you have me do today? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom? And so just kind of like, and you may not get an answer immediately, because sometimes I do that, and it's not like an answer that I get. Sometimes it is like I've had it where it's like, go here, tell this person this, say this exact thing, and see what happens, and it's been really kind of crazy when I followed it. But just to have that openness, throughout your day, to take in, and I don't know how to describe it, because it feels and sounds different than my own internal talk,
So is it like it's like you looking at yourself driving?
Yeah.
It's like there's 2 of you, but there's you looking at you.
Right. And so it's the higher me for sure.
Yeah.
Because I can tell when I'm like trying to force it, and it's like, oh no, that's not what I was meant to write. Because I'll be in the middle of it, and it's like, then I'm like, oh, I know where this is going to my brain. Like I try to take over, and then it's like that other universal voice or spirit, or I don't know how.
It's like the universe opened the gate and the flow just came out.
Yeah, and
The
it's
brain's in there like trying to put its 2 cents into that flow.
the brain. Yeah, my brain.
Yeah.
And there was something I've gone down the rabbit hole with quantum stuff, and one of the scientists was talking about the brain and the mind. No, this was on Mel just recently. One of the ones, and she's like, "Well, go back to that. I really want you to touch on you differentiated between the brain and the mind." And it was one about brain health. She had a person on there talking about brain health, and he was like, "Yeah, the brain, that's your muscle, that's your brain, the gooey matter in there, and then you've got your mind, which is, yeah." Anyway,
that's why I could only think of the mind's mindfulness,
yeah,
because the mind is you driving, and the mindfulness is the you watching it.
yeah. But then there's something else though, because it's like this universal thing that's coming through when I'm doing this intuitive writing. It just like, and I'm not sure if I'm using that incorrectly. If there's something else called intuitive writing and I'm using it wrong, but it's nothing I'm conscious of thinking necessarily. you know?
Yeah.
And I'm watching, it's like I'm a watcher. I'm watching, my mind's trying to do this, and then this other thing's coming in. So it's like there's three.
Yeah, but it's
I'm
amazing. And
watching
I
the
think
tug.
that, yeah, and just being able to see all that,
Yeah.
like, can you imagine if you could make that tangible, what that would look like?
Like a three-way
Oh
tug
my
of war.
God.
Or
Yeah,
like,
yourselves.
or like somebody watching in a gallery looking down, in there's a surgery going on and you're up here, and then there's like you on the table, and then there's the surgeon, and then there's like the student who's like, I got this. And the surgeon's like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa, hold
Yeah.
up.
But I encourage all of you who are listening or watching that you have the ability to reach out for tools like that, because I mean, go take a course.
Right.
Go take something that you normally wouldn't do, like an offshoot. Like the other me would never go look at this new book or take this new class or have this new discussion. Make some changes. The more you embrace the changes that are constantly around you, the stronger your mind and your brain becomes. And then when you get more of that knowledge and that experience, all of that comes back to changing your perception again. Like she was saying, the openness that you feel, you're more open into receiving. And then that just really refines your perception.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. To me.
So let's talk about some people who were famous, some people who are not so famous, to kind of bring this into a tangible evidence, I guess you could say.
Right.
So, people who have done great things because they were able to really hone in on their internal awareness.
Right. Right.
Um, so I know that you have a book and an author you would like to share. There's a little story behind that. So
Yeah,
I
I will.
really love to hear that again.
Well, I'm going to share it. But what you just said made me that honing into your internal awareness. Who was it that was? I feel like it was Tony Robbins was interviewing Nelson Mandela, and had asked him, "How did you survive 20 years in prison, like mentally, like knowing what you had, like." And Nelson Mandela's response, it's that internal awareness. I wasn't surviving, I was preparing. And he took that opportunity, that time to prepare. Anyway, it's just like, but he could have chosen doom and gloom. He could have. It's a choice. It's a choice.
Amazing.
It's a choice.
Just mind blowing.
So the thing Elaine was talking about was, there was another time in my life where I was going through a really big shift. I was having debilitating panic attacks. I used to even think they were like, people were making it up for just attention, right? I was that person, was like, they're just making it up for attention. No. And then it was like, oh, you think so? Boom. So, but I had already gone through the experience of substance abuse. I'd already gone through an experience of taking medication to try to like antidepressants and things like that to try to help with depression, anxiety, things like that. And I'd had a really horrible experience, hallucinations. It was horrible. And I decided that I was going to get through this without medication, but I was still kind of on that path of trying to figure it out. I found a great therapist at the time, talk therapy, and my mom and I had taken a road trip up to Jefferson, Texas, which is up in East Texas, a little town, kind of backwards. Well, I'm sorry if you're from there, but a little old school. And we were staying at this bed and breakfast that had the reason I bring up the town is that you would never expect to find a book like this there. It was very conservative.
Conservative.
Very conservative.
Yeah.
Um, and when I was in the lounge library area of this house at the bed and breakfast, this book, and I didn't steal it, I went and bought my own. This book was on the shelf, and it's Thich Nhat Hanh, and he's this Buddhist monk, and the book was Pieces Every Step, and I still have it. I remember when you were here, I was looking for it. I was like, you've got to read this book. But I sat down on the couch in that room, and I basically read this book front to back in like one sitting, and there were so many aha moments in this for me, you know, and they're small little bites. It's not like
Yeah.
big long things. Conscious breathing. There's one that says present moment, wonderful moment. You know, and this was also during the time when I was getting to where I wasn't enjoying teaching anymore. But I couldn't leave because this is one of those, like when you had a friend that is trapped in their job, right? I
Yeah.
couldn't just quit my job, you know, and then being a teacher, you're kind of like brainwashed into like, well, what else are you going to do? This is all you're trained for, you know? And so I was really, and then that was kind of like my family too. Like, this is what we do. And I was like, I'm freaking miserable, you know, and it was just like so many things were coming up, and then the whole culture of the place that I was working, it was just like, So I was like, this came at the time when it was like, I mean, one of the sections is a present moment, wonderful moment, finding ways to, and there are tools here of just how do I make this moment okay? You know, how do I, and then that realization of now. A lot of times when you're, and he put it in such a interesting way that when you're doom and glooming, but this might, what if, you think, okay, what if we go there and we're having this beautiful time, and you're like, oh, that was a great fantasy, but you don't realize that, what if we go there and you know, our car drives off the cliff. You don't say that's also a fantasy. Like, that made me click, like, oh, whether you're thinking good things or bad things, if it's not happening now, it's a fantasy. If it already happened, it's a memory, right? Everything, there is nothing, it's just now. And so it's just like trying to bring myself back to that. Got me through so much when I was like during that time when I was teaching, when I was having panic attacks about some other stuff, which we might get into. Realizing and when was in the middle of a panic attack, I was having like physical, like, feel like I'm having a heart attack, like it crawling to the back of the closet, panic attacks, you know, having to say, bring myself back to center. Am I in danger right now? Where's the danger? There's, you know, like, and these tools of just like, and then there's one called Nourishing Healthy Seeds, you know, and they're all little bite-sized. I mean, he's got so many books out too, but it's, he passed away a couple years ago.
Yeah, he did. But I love that book because even though a lot of people say I don't have time to sit here and read all these books like that
Mm-hmm.
that are bite-sized bits,
Yeah.
you got time to look up, you know, your Instagram account or whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just maybe just for today,
Yeah.
the 10 times you checked it, maybe 1 out of the 10 you actually read a little soundbite.
And another thing I did during that time, because it was probably one of the worst times of my life, beyond this past move, was I was very, what's the word? I was the gatekeeper of my experiences. I did not allow anything auditory, visual. I was very strict with what I allowed myself to consume. So on the radio, I didn't put on the news. I didn't listen to certain music. I didn't, and that may seem extreme, but I was retraining my brain, my body, my soul, my entity, and I could not allow anything to jeopardize that. So I was very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Protective?
Protective of myself during that time. Um, and I listened to audiobooks. So in the car on the way to work, I was listening to, you know, The Art of Happiness. I was listening to Pieces Every Step. I was listening to Ayan Le Bon Sant. I was listening to just anything that was uplifting, even down to the music. Like I was only listening to certain like Beatles songs, you know, Here Comes the Sun, and like it was very,
You were changing your environment around you just as you were changing the people you associated with
yeah,
to nurture what you were trying to do.
yeah. And so I just, yeah, I was very protective of myself and the things I was trying to, the bubble I was creating for myself to try
Right.
to nurture myself back to mental health, you know. So and this is, I know some people when I comment about it say, you know, I'm being defensive, but because I have the other YouTube channel and people, even on the last video I did where I was talking about being brave and like sharing ideas of like ways
Yeah.
to be brave, you know, some of the comments were like, you need help. You know, I think this is something you need to work out privately. I'm like, well, I'm not working anything out. I'm sharing like this was a journey and these are things you could do, kind of like this, you know. Um, so it's just cultivating that protection for yourself and knowing that that's okay to do.
Well, yeah. And the fact that you do have those choices, not everybody has the same choices or maybe even the same range of choices, but external influences until you learn how to master the internal awareness, which I don't think, you know, I don't think that'll be total utopia by the time I die, but it's going to be a never ending, I don't want to call it a challenge.
Right.
I want to call it something that I would embrace
Journey, a trip.
because you'll never stop learning. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
makes this life so interesting. Because if everything was already perfect, then we wouldn't have to do any of that,
Right. You know, and
you
you
know?
and some people choose to live their entire life like I'm not going to change. This is who I am. This is the way I am. This is the way I react. This is who I am. Deal with it. Get over it. Or too bad. Whatever. Get out of my life. You know.
There's so many missed opportunities.
Yeah. And so I don't choose that. I don't choose that. And when I look back at it, it's like you and I both have like gone through so many big shifts in our life for the better, like growing and becoming, I feel like more, I don't know how to say more whole, but just, I don't know how to put it.
I think we're being able to balance on this surfboard on the ocean of life and stay on it without falling off so much.
Right,
And I think
yeah.
that's experience with like the type of waves that come in, or we've had a tsunami in our life.
Yeah, yeah. If
I
you,
have I have been there more than once where I thought I was going to drown. Um,
yeah,
but it's getting back up on that board, and the more you practice, the more you're able to balance
yeah. And I
whatever
think
waves.
probably everybody can say, oh, you know what, I know somebody in my life, they fell off the board and they were like, that's it. I guess the way the ocean won. I mean, this is me now.
Goodbye.
I'm dying now. Bye. Like, come here. Put your feet down. You're
Yeah.
you're wasting water. Bye no. Just put your feet down. Yeah. Pretty funny.
So, yeah, so those are definitely a lot of tools that you could use. We will list some down below, maybe some ones that we haven't even mentioned that, you know, personally we may like. I don't know. Try it out. You never know. You just, life will surprise you. I emphasize, and maybe not even enough in this short video, how important internal awareness is. And you can do it every day. You can do it in little bits every day until you just work yourself up to where you feel like you're feeling the progress, you're seeing the progress, and you have the ability to do it because it's free and it all starts from within, and you already have the tools to do what you need to do inside your own self. It's just knowing how to apply it. And so, you know, recognizing triggers, whatever it may be within a relationship, or the relationship can be with people, the relationship could be with food, it could be with objects, anything, recognizing that, and then thinking about the contrast of how you would normally react and how you can react should you choose to today at this moment in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you the tools to practice and then make better decisions as you're driving your car down the road.
Yeah.
And then I mean, that goes anywhere from personal to professional.
Right.
You want to move up, you want to grow, you're growing out of your profession and you're evolving into something else, or you've lost the passion for whatever it is you're doing, or maybe it wasn't in your control.
Right.
Practice the internal awareness, really refine your perception, and you will see it in a whole nother light, and you'll see opportunities maybe you didn't see before. So all I can say is I encourage every single one of you to try that on
And
your journey.
yeah, and if it seems overwhelming, you don't have to start with the big problems of your life. You can start with something small, like I was out walking with the kids and my child was like, "Hey, Ratio over here." And my initial thing was, "I can't run." And then I
Yeah.
thought, "Wait, where did that come from?" Just little thoughts. If you hear yourself saying, "I can't this," or "I," stop yourself and say, "Where did that come from? When did I start thinking that?
Hmm.
How did
Or
that
trying
start?"
something new where you would like, this is what I eat, this is what I get every time.
Right. And one of the mantras we have in our home is, "It's good to try new things."
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so it's good to try new things. It's okay if you don't like it.
Yeah.
You try new things.
I mean, I do that with my kiddo. He'll see something on my plate and he's like, what is that? And I'm like, try it. At least have a no thank you bite. And so he'll take a bite. No thanks. But he tried it.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know? I mean, that right there already changed the neural networks in your brain. If you want to get technical about it, it
yeah,
really physically made a change because you made the change.
yeah.
You made the change, you'll make the change. You make the change, you make the change. It's a freaking mirror.
Right. And it
And
starts
you
to
can exercise that to your advantage.
and it starts to feel good, and you'll start to crave it. You'll start to crave that sensation of self-reflection, and and instead of like trying a bite of something new, you'll start craving that mentality of ew grass, instead of that saying, "You know what, I didn't care for that, but I'm glad I tried it."
Yeah.
you know
I mean, that's why you're here for life. Not everything's going to be
yeah.
great, but at least you tried it. Like, I've been there, done that. And I like watching the TV show Everybody Loves Raymond. And he said something the other day, and I forget the episode, but his brother said, hey, Robert, and he's like, Raymond, I always try to see the good in everything. And Raymond's like, yeah, because you already have the bad and the ugly.
Oh
But
no.
it's true. If you already accept that there's going to be the bad and the ugly and the red angry cars on the road and that you're going to get a flat tire,
Yeah.
and you already accept that and you don't concentrate, give it energy, give it life, and attach yourself to that, and you keep going forward,
Mm-hmm.
there's always going to be good that you're looking for, and you will find it.
Yeah. My car's in the shop right now. And I could be
Yeah,
focused on like,
like
oh no, my
literally.
car's in the shop and it's gonna cost me.
Literally.
And so I'm thinking like, no, this is great. My car's getting fixed, and we're gonna have a safe vehicle to drive around in, and I won't have to worry about breaking down on the side of the road. So
Yeah.
it's just a choice. Same coin, different side.
Yep.
So,
Pretty much.
well, this has been a really good chat. And
Yes.
I know we had a list of other famous people that have made huge shifts in their lives.
Yes.
Um, and if you think of any more while you're watching this, leave us a comment down below. Even if it's like a video link or a video of that person, or like, hey, this person, check this person out. And then if you have any other ways that you can offer for friends to try to come into their internal awareness, because I'm sure there's so much that we didn't hit on. There's so many, and there's as many different ways to come into your eternal awareness, your internal awareness, as there are people in this world, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know Matthew McConaughey stares himself in the mirror and is like, McConaughey, you got this. You're amazing. I can't remember.
I've done that where I like get really close to the mirror and I look into my pupil and I watch my pupil move with my heartbeat and I talk to myself.
I need to do
You
that.
got this.
You got this.
You got this.
He has a book. Speaking of that, I'm gonna link it. It's called Green Lights, and I know if you,
Yep.
it's on Audible. That if you want to listen to it, I have it on
I
Audible.
will because I haven't read that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so and I know he's not everybody's cup of tea, right? But it's a really interesting book about seeing the green lights in the world. If you see green lights, you know, it's they're
Yeah,
good.
it helps me keep the gas on that pedal, don't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love
Okay.
you.
Love you too. Love you guys.
Love y'all.